Donald Trump will win the 2024 Republican nomination. There's no doubt about that. Nikki Haley should drop out right now because she has no shot. Regardless if you're looking at polling numbers, if you're looking at demographics, if you're looking at just the simple math, or if you're looking at pretty much any type of metric, you know that Nikki Haley has no shot. The problem for Nikki Haley is not that she has no shot in one of these categories, is that she has no shot in any of the metrics. Now, if you look at the delegates allocated so far, you can see Donald Trump's at 62. He's going to be at 63 by the end of the day when Nevada's final delegate is also awarded to Donald Trump. And you can see that Nikki Haley, delegate-wise, and I'm going to prove it to you in this video, she's not going to end up winning the nomination. Trump's going to win this comfortably. So let's start off by looking at the polling right now nationally. Trump is at 75.8% nationally against Nikki Haley at 17.6%. Again, this is looking very bad for Trump. This is not a 20% difference. It's not a 30% difference. This is a 60% difference. Now, in 2016, where Trump actually won the primary, even when he won it, when all the candidates dropped out, he still won less than 50% of the total Republican vote. He still did not win a secure majority, despite the fact that many candidates dropped out sometime after Super Tuesday. And even then, again, he was at about 40%. We saw that he won the primary with about 20-something% of the vote in many, many states. Yet he still won the primaries. Right now, there's only 2 candidates, and Trump is at 75%. There's no way you can stop Donald Trump in such a scenario. Another big problem for Nikki Haley is that if you look at the Republican vote share, this is the New Hampshire exit polls, you can see that only half the electorate was Republicans, but among these Republicans, Nikki Haley only won a quarter of all Republican voters, and Trump won 3/4 of all Republican voters. That's really, really concerning, because guess what you need for a Republican primary? How do you win a Republican primary in a state? You win the Republican voters, because that's what a Republican primary is for. You're not going to win the Republican primaries by winning independents or Democrats. That's not how it works. And right now she's getting obliterated in New Hampshire, a state that's supposedly favorable to her. And that's a really big problem for Nikki Haley. Another big problem for Nikki Haley is that momentum is not on her side. Now, we're going to look at the Nevada results here on Tuesday. Donald Trump was not on the ballot, so Nikki Haley pretty much had this locked, or so you would think. If you look at the primary results here, you can see that who won. While Nikki Haley didn't win, none of these candidates. That's right, she lost to nobody by 33 points. And that's, again, really bad. If you can't even win against no quote-unquote nobody, you're definitely not going to win the primaries, right? Voters decide to choose none of these candidates. They chose nobody over Nikki Haley. And that's, again, very concerning for Nikki Haley. Trump, on the other hand, won the Republican caucus here by about 98 percentage points against Ryan Blankley, which is a no-name candidate, but it doesn't really matter. Truth is, Donald Trump absolutely obliterated Nikki Haley in the primaries. Now, right now, you can see that there is a delegate problem here. You can see that Trump is at 68 because there is an error in the metrics. Now, here's the map. Here's the thing. Where can Nikki Haley win? She can't win anywhere. Now, if you look at, this is the map of the delegates that will be allocated before Super Tuesday. So it's before or at Super Tuesday. So by Super Tuesday, about half the total delegates would have been allocated. In fact, I'll show you here. Oops. So by Super Tuesday, 1,151 delegates would have been allocated. That is the total number. For the Republican primary, you need 1,215 delegates. So by Super Tuesday, about half the delegates would have been allocated. And these are all the states that will hold a primary or caucus at or before Super Tuesday. And the question is, where can Nikki Haley win in all these states? First off, I'm going to tell you the plain truth. In the state of Texas, where there's 162 delegates, it's pretty much winner takes all. If you win 50% of the vote, you're going to win 100% of the delegates. And when there's only 2 candidates, you're pretty much going to win at least 50% of the vote, right? That makes sense. One candidate has to win more than 50% of the vote, and that candidate will be Donald Trump. If you look at some of the polling here in the state of Texas, there's not a lot. So I'm just going to right now go to the state of Texas. I hope there's some polling. So if in the state of Texas, you can see that again, Trump is at 83% in the Republican primary. That is how much he's at. He only needs 50% to carry all the delegates, and he's at 83%. Now going to the state of California here, another state with a huge amount of delegates. Trump is at 76.6%. That is again a huge problem. Although it's not, I believe it's not a state that's winner takes all. If you win a single congressional district by one vote, you take all the delegates in that congressional district if you crack 50%. And Trump's going to pretty much win all the congressional districts, and he's going to win pretty much all the delegates. Where does that lead you? That doesn't lead you a lot of other places. You see, where can Nikki Haley actually win? Well, there's only one area that I think that Nikki Haley could end up actually winning in, and that's not even a state. That's actually the District of Columbia, which is not a state. That's again a big problem for Nikki Haley. The District of Columbia has a negligible number of delegates. There's a total of 19, and she's not going to win all the delegates, right? If in the 2016 election, you see that, I'm just going to zoom in here, Donald Trump was actually in third place here. You can see Marco Rubio and John Kasich combined for 72% of the vote in Washington, D.C. Nonetheless, the problem here is that there's only 19 delegates. It's negligible, and it really does not matter here. So, although Nikki Haley is probably going to win the caucus here by quite a few delegates with quite a few votes, that doesn't really change in the grand scheme of things. Where else could Nikki Haley target? You can see that she might be able to target two states here, in the states of Vermont and the state of Massachusetts. These two states, there's about 55% of the voters here are pretty much are Republicans, and about 45% of both these states are independents, or Democrats, or unaffiliated. So these are areas that Nikki Haley could hypothetically win. Now, I think it's a stretch, but let's say Nikki Haley hypothetically wins Massachusetts, wins the state of Vermont. That's hypothetical, right? Look at the state of Maine. Potentially, she could win the state of Maine in the best case scenario. So let's say she wins the state of Maine. Colorado, technically, Donald Trump right now is not on the ballot. The Supreme Court might reverse that. But let's say that Nikki Haley wins the state of Colorado. Where does that lead you? Well, that leads you at Nikki Haley with 109 delegates. Donald Trump is at 490 delegates. Where does Nikki Haley make up more ground? There's only one more place that I think that Nikki Haley might make up more ground in, and that is the state of Virginia. If you look at the state of Virginia here, it's a state that's kind of allergic to Donald Trump, right? We see that although Trump actually won the primary here, you see that Marco Rubio carried pretty much the liberal areas of the state. For example, here you can see that he carried Richmond and some of these suburbs around the DC area, and that's where a lot of the vote is, right? In Fairfax County, in Loudoun County, as well as that in Arlington County, where just outside of DC. These are all areas that you see that Rubio was able to carry. However, even the best case scenario, I'm hesitant to see that actually Nikki Haley could win the state. Potentially, this is pretty much Nikki Haley's best case scenario. She wins New England, she wins Colorado, because assuming Trump is not eligible there, and really there's nowhere else that Nikki Haley is going to win. Realistically, even a best case scenario, Nikki Haley is going to win a couple of states, and those are states with negligible number of delegates. They're with small amounts of delegates. And in a realistic scenario here, where it's not a best case scenario, it's what polling predicts, we're going to see Nikki Haley end up losing a state like Massachusetts. If you look at some of the polling here, I'm going to bring up the state of Massachusetts. You can see that Nikki Haley is actually losing the state of Massachusetts here, a state that she supposedly has a chance, by about 30 points. If you look at a state like Vermont, you can see that Trump is also leading Nikki Haley in a state like Vermont. These are all states where supposedly Nikki Haley has a shot, but in reality, she's probably going to lose all of these states, right? We're also probably going to see her lose the state of Maine. When all is settled, you can see that really, I think that the ruling here will be overturned. You can see that Trump will pretty much sweep everywhere except Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. will probably go for Nikki Haley regardless how well she does in the remainder of the nation. But when you see the delegates filled in, you will likely see that by the end of Super Tuesday, Trump is going to be at 1,000 delegates, and Nikki Haley's going to be at like 100 delegates. And that's a huge problem. Mathematically, Nikki Haley has no shot. Polling-wise, Nikki Haley has no shot. Demographic-wise, Nikki Haley has no shot. Nikki Haley has no shot at anything whatsoever. And really, her only pathway right now is to drop out. We see in Nevada, right? It's a state where Trump was not even on the ballot technically. And still, Nikki Haley lost to quote unquote none of these candidates. And we see that really even 2016, where Trump got 30% of the vote on Super Tuesday, Trump still ended up winning the Republican nomination. Now, if you look at the Republican primary here, Nikki Haley is at, Nikki Haley's down by 60%, at least close to 60%. We're talking about 50%, 60% deficit across the nation. There's no way that she wins the Republican primary. The only question is, how much of a margin is she going to be embarrassed by? Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.